Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Uh, Ada,
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair.
Igbo.
We can't hear you, Chair.
Anela, can you hear me now?
Yes, Chair, we can hear.
Oh, I don't know why network here is not stable.
Now we can hear you very well.
Okay, my brother. Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Sure.
10%. Honorable Litsie.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, colleagues. Are we audible that side?
Yes, Chair, you are.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. Colleagues, today we're having a conversation with the Commission for Gender Equality. Very important institution that in our case we've been working with to try and get a sense of a number of issues in our institutions of higher learning of transformation. Today, they are going to give us their report on transformation issues at 4 institutions that they worked with or they worked on the past year or so. This institution is called the Commission for Gender Equality, just in case I did not say it. Before I open the meeting, I know that we have received apologies. We have received apologies from the minister who is in the cabinet committee. And then we have received the apology from the Deputy Minister, Buti Manamela, who also not make it this morning. We have, I have seen Deputy Minister Mimi Kondwe, who are going to give space to address us or to lead the delegation. I've seen the DDG Sotrikwa as well. I'm not sure if he's standing in for the DG, but we'll also give her an opportunity to give us some opening as part of the team that is leading the delegation. Anela, do we have any more apologies? Those are the 2 that I had noted, the minister and Deputy Minister Manamela. Are there any apologies?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the honorable members. No, thank you very much, Chair. I think those are the apologies, Chairperson, that we received. And also just to add that Honorable Zondo, his apology is still standing. Yeah, those are the apologies, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. So maybe let me now officially open the meeting and welcome everybody in the meeting. Maybe let me give a little bit of background on the interaction between CGE and the department. So following the engagement between the Commission for Gender Equality, the 5th Parliament recommended to the 6th Parliament to monitor the development of policy framework on gender-based violence and discriminations against women and LGBTQI persons, and to compel institutions to develop policies which seeks to protect the rights of women and LGBTQI persons against GBV and discriminations, as well as to implement consequence management where there was non-compliance. The 5th Parliament also recommended that CGE expand its work to cover TVET colleges and also sectors. And in the 6th Parliament engagement with CGE, the first engagement we had with or CGE had with the 6th Parliament was on the 2nd of June 2020, where they were tabling a 2018-19 report on gender transformation in tertiary institution. And the institution that they covered at the time was University of Zululand, Nelson Mandela University, Sol Plaatje University, Mpumalanga University, and the Department of Higher Education and Training itself. The second engagement was CGE appeared as a witness at the committee's inquiry into the appointment of Professor Mbati as the Vice Chancellor of Sefako University and related matters. This was on the 17th of February 2021. The third engagement was on the 24th of November 2021. And this was the report on follow-up hearings on gender transformation in tertiary institution for the financial year 2019-2020. And the institution that they covered at the time was University of Johannesburg, University of Free State, University of Stellenbosch University, University of Zululand again, University of Mpumalanga again, Nelson Mandela University and Solplaatje again. And on the 16th of March 2022, CGE appeared before the committee to give a report on the gender transformation for the first time into investigations into TVET colleges. And they covered Nkangala TVET, Northern Cape Urban TVET, Southwest Gauteng TVET, and Waterberg TVET College. The following engagement was on the 17th of February 2023, where CGE tabled a progress report on gender transformation investigation at TVET colleges, where the aforementioned colleges that were mentioned. And the observations that we have, or that we have observed on previous engagement with CGE, was having considered the above reports. The committee, the Sixth Parliament Committee, noted the following. One, that there was a serious underrepresentations of women in critical decision-making positions at institutions of higher learning. And CGE concurred with the committee's concern and also noted that there have been some transformation taking place in some institutions that that they had engaged. It was pivotal to ensure that funding for students is accessible for postgraduate studies, to increase the representation of women in makeup of institutional management. Another observation was the concerns were raised regarding the disjuncture between the internal processes of institution and SAPS in dealing with GBV-related matters. The inability of some institutions of higher learning to provide safe spaces for victims of GBV incidents. Another observation was the allegation of sex for marks at some institutions, and the committee would have recommended that a concerted effort be made to make it difficult for perpetrators of such acts to exist in our institutions. Progress made in Sixth Parliament. In July, the department published a policy framework to address gender-based violence in the post-education and training system. The committee would have monitored that the DED implementation of National Strategic Plan on gender-based violence and femicide. And in August last year, the former Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Bladen Nzimande, launched the Transforming Mentalities program. The program aimed at transforming the way men and boys build relations with women and girls, about the liberation of men and boys from anachronistic and dominated personalities. It is about men and boys unlearning reactionary habits and emancipationships they enjoy with women and girls. From the 22-23 financial year, the department now has a target report on the implementation of the Sexual Offences Amendment Act 32 of 2007, and related matters in the PSET system approved by the DG. And some of the considerations in closing would have, the consideration by the committee would have been the department should present to the committee a report on the implementation of the Sexual Offences Amendment Act 32 of 2007 and related matters in the PSAT system approved by the DG. The department should also present the report on the implementation of a policy framework to address gender-based violence in the post-education and training system. Those would have been my opening, just to give a little bit of background to members who may not have been here when we're dealing with such matters from CGE. So today they are going to present to us about what is it that they would have done in the past year or so. What are their observations and what is it that they are recommending in their inaugural meeting with the 7th Parliament. Having said that, let me give Dr. Mimi Gondwe to represent the ministry, and then from there I see Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi, the DG, is also in the meeting. I'll give him after that. Dr. Gondwe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee, the officials of the department that are with us on this virtual meeting, the leadership and officials from the CGE, good morning to you all. Chairperson, we welcome the presentation of the report on the state of gender transformation at tertiary institutions for the 2023-24 financial year by the CGE, as well as the research report on sexual harassment in higher education institutions for the year 2024. Chairperson, given that both reports were just shared with us the day before yesterday, we've not had sufficient and ample time to properly study and analyze these reports. But notwithstanding this, Chairperson, we undertake and commit to studying and analyzing the reports and further ensuring that the findings and the recommendations in both reports are given due consideration and attention by the department. Chairperson, it's been a decade since the CGE first started conducting annual hearings related to issues of gender transformation and GBV at public institutions of higher learning. The first round of hearings were held from 25 to 28 November 2014 at Constitution Hill and involved the University of South Africa and the University of Venda. I think from the outset of the hearings, the annual hearings that have been held by the CGE, it's maintained that the hearings were not intended to be punitive in nature, but rather developmental. And we welcome this. As such, institutions have always been encouraged by the CGE to reach out to them for assistance, and the CGE would compile a report outlining its findings and recommendations. We therefore really wholeheartedly acknowledge and appreciate the work that the CGE is doing in the PSAT sector in this regard, because since the CGE has started conducting these hearings, there's been an increased interest in addressing gender transformation, as well as gender-based violence and femicides at our institutions of higher learning. The findings and the recommendations of the report that will be presented by the CGE today, Chairperson, come at an opportune time, as the department in February published the report of the ministerial task team appointed to advise the Minister of Higher Education and Training on matters of sexual harassment and gender-based violence and harm in South African universities. Chairperson, I think it's also important for us to remember that the Higher Education Act of 1997 and the Continuing Education and Training Act of 2006 both promote human rights, gender equity, and equality. While these two important pieces of legislation promote human rights, gender equity, and equality, they, however, do not explicitly address the issue of combating gender-based violence in the PSAT sector. And in order to mitigate this gap or lacuna, the department has published some policy frameworks to guide institutions around the issues of combating gender-based violence in the sector. These frameworks include the policy framework for the realization of social inclusion in the PSET system and the policy framework to address GBV in the PSET system. We further acknowledge that in responding to some of the previous recommendations made by the CGE, the department has, through its Social Inclusion and Equity Directorate, embarked on various capacity building roadshows, specifically covering TVET colleges. Moreover, during the 2022-23 and 2023-24 financial years, the department has held information sessions aimed at raising awareness around the roles and responsibilities in implementing the policies that address social inclusion, gender transformation, disability, and gender-based violence and femicide at TVET colleges. These initiatives by the department, no matter how critical they may be, Chairperson, I'm the first to admit that they're not enough. We cannot continue to measure ourselves in the area of GBV on awareness programs and frameworks alone. The real impact of the work that we do around issues of GBV in this sector must be seen in the changed behavior of everyone in the sector. I'm sure I speak on behalf of many South Africans, especially women, when I say that the people of our country want to see and feel the impact of the work that we're doing around gender-based violence in the sector urgently. I therefore trust and hope that the report that will be presented by the CGE today is pregnant with practical solutions on how we can curb the scourge of sexual harassment and gender-based violence and femicide in the sector, and ensure that the state of gender transformation at tertiary institutions is something that we can all look on with pride. In concluding, Chairperson, I want to reiterate that the department supports the work of the CGE in ensuring that institutions of higher learning are spaces where women feel safe, protected, and where they're able to achieve and realize their human potential unhindered by unfair discrimination, sexual harassment, and gender-based violence. And as a department, I once again commit ourselves to working closely with the CGE in an effort to ensure that our response to issues around gender transformation and GBV and femicide is a more impactful response that makes a real difference in the lived experiences of women in the PSET sector. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Dr. Gondwe. Dr. Nkosinathi Sisulu.
The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training, Honorable W.T. Letsier, honorable members, allow me to greet very warmly our Deputy Minister M.M. Gondwe. And Dr. Gondwe has articulated the perspective of the department flowing from the comments and remarks made by the chairperson in his opening remarks. Mine is to commit the department in ensuring that the existing frameworks that have been established to try and contribute to the solutions for the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide that engulfs our country is resolved. I wish to indicate, Chairperson, that the Department of Education, through its entity, the entity being the higher health entity, has established a footprint of services of the department in all institutions of higher learning, and that will include TVET colleges and universities. But the comments and remarks by Dr. Gondwe are true that frameworks and systems alone are not going to be enough. We are ready and willing to support the Commission on Gender Equality in its work and towards the attainment of its mandate. On behalf of the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. N.P. Nkabane, a Member of Parliament, we would like to commit our department in ensuring that the decisions of the Portfolio Committee, the contribution of the Commission on Gender Equality, the reports that have been published on the issues in post-school education and training are turned into programs of action that will help towards ensuring that the solutions that have been recommended are implemented in the sector. I come here not alone. I bring with me the senior members of EXCO of the department that are here, including the CFO of the department, Mr. Lucian Cairns, also the Chief Director in the Office of the DG, who's here with me, and other senior officials who are working within the planning branch, so that not only do we engage the report, but we also understand the nuances that seek to get us to understand these challenges much better and to recommit to ensuring that we achieve the goals we've set for ourselves. Thank you very much, Chairperson. We appreciate the leadership you have provided.
Thank you very much, DG. I got cut off there for a second. I think there are forces.
Apologies. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Chase. Apologies. I think I had a connection problem.
No, I think it's my connection is unstable. Am I audible now?
You're audible, Chair.
Yes,
Okay.
you're audible, Slal.
I can hear you, Chief.
CGE. GE.
Good morning, Chair.
Presentation from, I think, Mr. Tertiary and Mr. Bradley Swanepoel. Yes, Mr. Shopping.
Indeed, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Honorable Chair, and good morning, honorable members, as well as the principals, yes, of the
Mr.
department.
Shopping, hold on 1 second. I see Honorable Khojani has raised a hand. Maybe let me take a hand first and then I'll give to you. Honorable Khojani.
Good morning, Chairperson, Deputy Ministers, and honorable members, and also the other members. Chair, I just wanted to add, maybe it will help us with the connection if we disable the video for the bandwidth, because we had the same issue in our other PC yesterday. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Khojani. Dr. Shopping, you can continue. I think if you can just tilt your video a little bit so that members can see who you are, and then if you struggle with network, you can just switch it off.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, honorable members as well. As indicated, I'm Tsietsi Shopping. I'm the acting head of legal department. I will indeed be taking the committee through the report of the commission. I'm accompanied by our legal researcher, Mr. Bradley Swanepoel, as well. Just to start with, Honorable Chairperson, the part of the annual performance plan of the commission for the current financial year is number one, to ensure that it is conducting strategic engagement with the Department of Higher Education and Training. We have sent a correspondence in requesting to meet the department, and we are in the process of arranging that meeting so that we can engage the department on the reports that we have recently launched. The reports were issued and shared with the relevant universities in order for them to implement the recommendations of the Commission. The importance of having this strategic engagement, Honorable Chairperson and members, is to ensure that at least the department is kept abreast of what the Commission is engaged in. The second part of it, Chairperson, is part of the annual performance plan, is to ensure that we also going to engage the executive. The importance of engaging the executive through the ministries or the president, as well as the private sectors, and also the universities, is to ensure that we are heading towards what we can find as a solution. Having the Commission conducted these hearings, you have outlined a number of universities that appeared before the Commission. Just in total, 21 universities appeared before the Commission, and 7 TVET colleges also appeared before the Commission. Now, for this financial year, the Commission, in its plans, it will be engaging in as far as providing a report, consolidating all its recommendations, and make a proposal to either introduction of a legislation that ensures uniformity across the country in as far as sexual harassment is concerned, and also in general the issues of transformation at the universities. So I was just giving that highlight to indicate that that is what the Commission will be doing, because it has noted that conducting these hearings without coming up with a solution, it will end up being futile, because the universities implement different policies in accordance to its own structures and its own actions, which lacks consolidation. Hence, you will see different progress from universities, others regressing or others progressing. However, lack of that consolidated or uniform legislation or regulations is a problem. Hence, that engagement will assist in ensuring that all the private sector and the universities involved, including the executive, are engaged, and we all come up with a consolidated approach to say this is the best model that can be taken forward. We are still busy with that report and engagement arrangement, and at the end of this financial year, that is what a report that we will be issuing. Going to today's engagement, we do have a presentation here. If you may allow, Chairperson, may I share the screen my side?
Yes, you can. Let me see if you have been.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Just a moment, Chairperson. I wanted to expand it on my side here. Just to confirm it, if it's clearly visible on your side, Chairperson.
I can see it from my side.
Thank you.
Visible.
Thank you. The Commission for Gender Equality, just to indicate, is a Chapter 9 institutions in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Chairperson, may I just quickly inform some service providers outside there? It seems there's some noise or vehicle that parked there. Just a moment, please. Thank you, Chairperson. They're taking care of the noise. So the Commission for Gender Equality, as a Chapter 9 institution, it's mandated to protect and promote respect for gender equality. as well as the development and attainment of gender equality, and made necessary recommendations for Parliament in as far as the legislation affecting the status of women and gender parity in South Africa. That is in accordance with Section 181. And therefore, cooperation with the Chapter 9 institutions is essential in as far as they are carrying their constitutional mandate. As the annual performance plan for the previous financial year, Chairperson, that is where we called the 4 universities that are that will be outlined in this report. Part of the mandate of the Commission derives from the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act, as well as the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. These are the legislations that the Commission is utilizing in monitoring and observing the conduct of gender equality and transformation in the country. And now, as part of its annual performance plan, the universities were called to appear before the Commission. The importance of these hearings is to ensure that risk experienced by men and women at institutions of higher learning, as well as employees and students, are addressed. That there should be a general level of compliance by employers through various obligations created under different laws. And we identify if there is policy gaps in the legislation and propose remedies. Before the Commission, we called the Walter Sisulu University, Sefago Makhota Health Sciences University, University of Fort Hare, as well as University of Western Cape. Questionnaires were dispatched to these universities, and investigations were conducted in terms of Section 11(1)(e) and Section 12 of the Commission for Gender Equality Act. And notices were issued to the accounting officers to appear before the Commission. We do utilize the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, our enabling legislation, the Commission on Gender Equality Act, as well as other variety of legislation that I wouldn't necessarily go through, but may touch on during the course of the presentation. We do also take into cognizance the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment, Higher Education Amendment Act. And also we do take cognizance of the various international and regional instruments that provides for transformation and respect for gender equality. So those are some of the instruments that we are utilizing in our work. To start with, it's the University of Walter Sisulu. Just to indicate, I'll be going through the findings and the recommendations in sake of time. With the university, the Commission found that from the total of 13 positions at top management, 8 of those positions were occupied by African men, and 5 of those positions were occupied by African women. And at the top management level, as well as the senior management level, there was no representation of persons with disability. And specifically at the senior management level, out of 48 positions, 30 was men and 18 were women. Hence, this Commission's finding that there is a skewed gender representation at the top senior and academic level of the university, as well as lack of representation of persons with disability. This is not in line with Section 20 of the Employment Equity Act, which requires achievement of equitable representation of suitably qualified people within each occupational category. Furthermore, in as far as the appointed employment equity manager, the Commission found that the university failed to take reasonable steps to ensure that the employment equity manager, in terms of Section 24(2) of the Employment Equity Act, performs their responsibilities and ensures transformation at the university. And what is important here, Chairperson, is that the mere appointment of the employment equity manager as per the legislation is not sufficient and does not take away the responsibility of the employer or the university to still ensure that transformation is taking place. So that duty must still be ensured, and hence necessary support must be given to the employment equity manager so that they can ensure that transformation is being adhered to, and that responsibility should not be left unaccounted for by the accounting officer. In as far as the policies that create inclusivity in the workplace, the university does not have flexi policy, does not have childcare facilities, or any similar policies that enable reasonable accommodation of parental obligations. And lack of such policies demonstrates reluctance to implement the provisions of the Code of Good Practice on pregnancy and after birth of children. Particularly, the clauses 522 of that policy requires protective measures and adjustment of working arrangement for pregnant and breastfeeding employees. Further, the other clauses 5.13 requires arrangement for breastfeeding to be done for every 30 minutes, twice a day, for employees who are breastfeeding for a period of 6 months after the birth of the child. So lack of these policies creating this inclusivity shows that now the environment of the university might not necessarily take into consideration those needs of parents, and therefore lacks in ensuring transformation in that regard. And further, in as far as the sexual harassment is concerned in the workplace, the university's policy is aligned with the 2022 Code on Good Practice. However, it is not conducting the sexual harassment workshop. It hasn't conducted such between 2019 to 2023 for almost a period of 4 years. This is concerning because even if there is existence of policies that aims to protect employees, if there is no education that is taken or workshops conducted, be it to the employees as well as the management, so that they can know what protections are there and what obligations must be taken, then it is futile that the policies exist. So therefore, the conducting of the workshop is essential, and we cannot afford to have a period of over 4 years without such workshops taking place. As well, part of the findings was the lack of inclusivity. Hence, the commission the commission commended the university for implementing various inclusivity and GBVF programs, as well as its immediate implementation of the commission's recommendation pertaining to the vetting processes and establishment of the Employment Equity Forum. This comment, Chairperson, comes at the premise that upon engagement with the university, this is one of the recommendations that the university did not waste time in implementing and ensure that it has adequate policies. Hence, we cite it as comment and as a necessary benchmark because it in these instances, it did well. As the recommendations, therefore, some of the recommendations that were made here is that the university must take reasonable steps to ensure that the employment equity manager performs their functions. And also it must ensure that it develop policies that can create reasonable accommodation in line with the legislation. And also in addressing the skew representation at the top senior and academic level, as well as the professor and dean's level, the employment equity plan must have adequate measures to address identified employment equity barriers. This was informed by that despite the university identifying barriers, there were no measures in place to be dealing with those barriers. I did already allude to the creation of the a conducive working environment for mothers who just giving birth and children. I will move to Sefako Makato Health Sciences University. The finding of the commission regarding its representation was that women were in the minority, both at the top and senior, as well as academic positions. And there were no persons with disability included in those positions at all at the university. Hence, the commission found that there is a skewed representation, and the university does not have a policy to promote inclusivity of the LGBTQIA+ persons. And also the policy providing for disability was still under consultation. These are some of the concerning factors that at this age and time, the universities are still consulting in as far as these policies are concerned. Hence, as a general finding of the commission, dating back to the first hearings that the commission conducted, is that there is lack of that uniform application of policies that are needed in the university structure environment. The sexual harassment policy of the university is not aligned with the Code of Good Practice 2022. It's important, Commissioner Chairperson, that the policy also is aligned with the new developments of the law. If it is not aligned, it does not provide the intended protection to employees. And hence the 2025 code was set aside. The current policy provides for bullying in the workplace, provides various forms of harassment in the workplace, and adequate means to address that. And if the policies are not aligned, it is a major concern. And also the universities, Fago Makato, are struggling in addressing employment equity barriers that are deeply rooted in the social cultures of the institution, and they are further perpetuated by the locations, scarce skills, and some unattractive disciplines. And the recommendations further is that the university must include in its employment equity plans the means to address over representations in the top senior and academic positions. The university indicated that it was in the process of drafting the policy for the inclusivity of persons with disability and also the LGBTQI+ persons. And it was essential that it needed to reach and conduct awareness to educate members on these policies and upon their finalization. So again, highlighting the chairperson that the policies were still in the drafting stages, and despite the new legislations that were requiring these policies to be in place. And one of the aspects that the commission noted is that the delays in approval process of the policies as well. It took long for the councils through the process of universities. So each university will follow its own processes and present the policies before the necessary authorities and committees. And that process also delayed because in some observations, it took time to months before a policy can be implemented. During that period where there is no policy or during the approval processes, discrimination is taking place and there is no means therefore to offer protection to staff and students. And the CGE recommended also that the engagement with the relevant stakeholders in addressing equity barriers. This is in acknowledging that some of the barriers are interdependent and it will take the relevant stakeholders to address social and cultural norms that the university is facing with given its location. Therefore, a recommendation was then made that it must engage with various stakeholders in addressing the scarce skills and some of the unattractive disciplines of the universities that lead to it not being able to retain some of its staff, which impacts on its employment equity status. And in as far as University of Fort Hare, what the commission found that out of the total of 6 positions there were 2 women and 4 men at the top management. and there was no persons with disability representation. Also at senior management, out of 18 positions, there were 4 women and 14 men at that senior positions. Therefore, again, showing that there was overrepresentation of Black men at top and senior management levels. As per the constitutional provisions, section 194, the constitution states that the public administration should be broadly representative of the Republic of South Africa. And therefore, prior to appearing before the commission, the university failed to implement the creation of an enabling environment for persons with disability and to ensure representation of persons with disability, and therefore, as well as eliminating barriers of persons with disabilities. The university does not have a policy in place to encourage an inclusivity environment for LGBTQI+ persons. And it did undertake that it is part of its priorities for 2024. The commission found that the sexual harassment policy of the university was not aligned with the 2022 Code of Good Practice. And the commission commended various means of programs the university was having regarding inclusivity, reasonable accommodation, transformation, and security, which have not yet to be implemented. One of the concerns that the commission is noting, Chairperson, where there is a presence of policies in place, implementation is not taking place. And there will be then these good policies that are in place. When you look at the actual representation and the working environment, you find the opposite. There is no conducive working environment for persons with disability or their accommodation. And hence now there is no a true relationship between the policies and implementation. And the commission made one of the recommendations is that the University of Fort Hare must eliminate barriers affecting persons with disabilities through its planned activities. And it had to finalize the review and approval of its sexual harassment policy. The last university that appeared before the commission is the University of the Western Cape. At the top management position there, it had 36 positions. And out of the 36 positions, 19 were women and 17 were men. It was the only university that at least tried to reach that balance in as far as even having more representation of women in its top and senior management positions and academic as well. Women dominate the administrative level as compared to men. The commission commends the University of Western Cape that other universities should benchmark and improve their transformation imperatives at the top management. However, of concern, what was noted about the University of Western Cape was that its sexual harassment policy was not aligned with the Code of Good Practice 2022. And what the commission found in a lot of them, including Western Cape University, is that they will make reference to the laws that do not necessarily exist and the provisions that are outdated, giving concern that the status of the university is having all the units within its internal environment, having academic and professionals. It's a concerning that the universities would still not ensure that they are aligned with the laws. With other private universities, you may argue otherwise, but with underutilization of the academic competence that the universities are having, it is concerning that they will be utilizing legislation that is not necessarily existing. The recommendation that we made to the University of Western Cape is that it must finalize the review of its recruitment selection policy, sexual harassment policy, breastfeeding policy, leave policy, gender equity policy, and all other policies that were not aligned with the current legislation. So in as far as it's concerned here, a lot of its policies were still under review, whereas they have been existing for a very long time and therefore create less protective means for employees. And the university was making reference to the protection of harassment 17 of 2010, which does not exist, and protection from harassment 17 of 1910, which was very concerning for the commission that if the reference to such laws are made that are not in existence, it was concerning about the safety of employees and students. One of the aspects that the university raised is the unlawful negotiations that it noted regarding during its investigation and to its investigators during either the investigation or the hearings of the internal disciplinary hearings. The commission recommended that it should, in its policies, address this challenge of unlawful negotiations because a policy must be followed. The sexual harassment, the policy of the department of the university must be followed to the core in as far as it's providing for both the informal and formal means of addressing complaints, and therefore unlawful negotiations with the investigators, it is concerning. Hence, the recommendation was made that that should be addressed through its policy. And further, the university, the CG recommended that it need to explore how to assist the gender unit in furthering its mandate of ensuring that there is transformation at the university. But one of the concerns is that there are these units that are in place, gender units at different universities. And lack of support of these units then also does not necessarily assist in transforming the university. The recommendations of this unit, if they are not taken into account, it does not assist in ensuring that the university is advancing. One of the aspects in handling of sexual harassment is the observation that the commission made in as far as the final written warnings are given on sexual harassment cases. You know, one of the cases it was handling. As long as the university follows its policy and provides appropriate sentences in as far as sexual harassment is concerned, it is reasonable and adequate. And therefore, if there are no adequate reasons that can be provided to the CGE in as far as indicating the reasons for certain warning, a written warning to be issued, it is concerning. Where the environment, the students or the staff of the university are of the view that despite a guilty finding of the perpetrators, they are still left scot-free by being given written warnings. That is a problem. Hence, the recommendation was made to the commission by the commission to the university to ensure that it follows, its processes are in place and adequate and appropriate remedies are provided in as far as sexual harassment is concerned. Sexual harassment remain as one of the concerning elements in the workplace because it deters, it involves abuse of power, bullying, and victimization, and it should receive appropriate sentencing and sanctions. Hence, part of the recommendations of the commission is that there's, as soon as the university makes the students and lecturers aware of other remedies in labor laws, it is for them to pursue the cases where they are not satisfied and they seek the review of the sentences through either the necessary bargaining council or through the commission, the CCMA, Commission on Mediation and Conciliation. As the conclusion, the universities in general, all the universities have to improve recruitment of women and persons with disabilities at the academic, top and senior management position to ensure there is equal representation in accordance with the Employment Equity Act. It's also vital universities provide adequate funding to gender transformation to achieve their employment equity targets, as well as manage the retention of the female staff. The commission found that some of the universities are reluctant to review their sexual harassment policies to be aligned with the current laws. The reluctance subject staff and students to lesser protective measures than the law provides and the benefit and protection thereof. And also, when adequate addressing of sexual harassment and sexual offenses are some of the challenges that are faced by the universities. The University of Western Cape managed to address lack of representation of women in leadership positions through its impactful means. Hence, the Commission recommended it can be a benchmark. Just as a conclusion, the Chairperson, and just to reiterate that the Commission will be engaging the department and as well as the private sector during this financial year, so that in line with the provisions of the Commission for Gender Equality Act, an engagement should be done and recommendations should be done to the executive and the president in as far as the need to address transformation in all the universities. What the Commission found with all the universities is that they differ in how they are applying these different policies. Others are advancing, others are regressing, and hence there is therefore that need to see that we would have that consolidated approach, consolidated guidelines or regulations. And through these engagements that we are intending to be having with different stakeholders, and after gathering necessary data that we are currently gathering from students as well as the different organizations, we will be bringing a report together and table it before the executive and the president, so that a solution can be given just once and for all, address the issues in general, in as far as inconsistencies are concerned. Thank you, Chairperson. That is the presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shuping. Really appreciate the presentation. DG, I am going to give you to close the presentation, and I'm going to allow members to ask questions. In the meantime, members, you can raise your hand. DG, any concluding remarks? Is the Director General of the Department of Higher Education and Training still with us? Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi. I'm trying to look here. Okay, I can't find him. Don't know what happened there. I see members, some have raised hands, some are still thinking about it. I'm going to take the hands in this order. I will start with Honorable Mandla Shikwambana. Honorable Matlodi Maseko as number 2. Honorable Sihle Ngubane as number 3. Honorable Stacy Lee Khojane. I didn't know, Honorable Khojane, that you are Stacy Lee. You have a double barrel name. And then I will see if there are other members who will raise their hands after that. Honorable Shikwamban, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Greetings to the Deputy Minister, DG, and members of the Portfolio Committee and our staff. Chair, I just want to make some few points here. I'm not going to talk. Well, we welcome the presentation by the Commission, but also what I want to put in record is that there's work done, and when there's work done, we are also told of the framework systems and the policies that are in place. But as the Deputy Minister indicated, that to have frameworks and systems and the policies in place without action is taken, nothing is going to happen. Because if we check here, we still have universities that are not in compliance in terms of the act. They are not actually following what needs to be followed. It's only University of Western Cape, if I'm not mistaken, my concern here, Chair, is that out of the executive representation, we are only told of the number versus men and female, but we are not told as to, in terms of race, black and white, Indians and colors, that we are actually having. Can we at least also get an understanding that in terms of race, what is the balance in between, so that we can also understand to say, in as much as the Western, the UCT is actually having more women representation in the executive and the managerial positions, but what is the racial balance there? Do we have more blacks, more whites, or less? Just like that. If we can get that information, just to understand what's it. Again, my second point is that the commission seems to be focusing more on the executive and the managerial of the university and focuses less on the students' base. Because if you check, we've got a lot of issues within the students itself. We've got students that are in leadership. We don't even know that in the SRCs that we are having in South Africa, both TVET colleges and the universities, what are the representation in terms of the men and women leading the students and the race as well, in as far as, and also we've got a lot of issues that are happening. Students are being raped daily, students are being killed, students are being abused, and then there's a lot of social injustice that are happening within the students itself. And when we get the report, or to me, the report clearly speaks less as more as issues of the students. Can we also get to understand as to whether are they doing consultations? Are they meeting with the students? Are they actually, when they meet these universities in their hearings, also raising the issues of the students in wanting to understand as to how far are we in terms of the student representation and how students are actually living their their life in an environment where they find themselves, where students are killed, students are raped, students are abused, students go to class with a lot of issues, hungry and all those type of things that which it may even create a lot of social injustice. So my is to understand, on the side of the students, can we get at least detailed the report as to how is the commission dealing with the issues of the students as compared to the management of the university? Because it seems like there's more effort and more focus on the management as more, as much as students is concerned. Mine is, I just want to understand, what is that they can tell us, the commission, in relation to the students, because we also need to understand if the students do have these gender policies in their institutions or within their SRC. Do they have these gender issues that which the management are also having in the university? But nonetheless, the report seems to be clear, but let me get that understanding. What is that happening within the race in terms of the people who are in the positions of responsibility in the institutions of higher learning? Let us get there so that we are able to track properly as to whether we are regressing or we are progressing. Because we may even have to say UCT, there are more women in the positions of higher responsibility as compared to men, but only to find that it's all white people there. There's no black representation. Can we at least get that detailed information? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shikwambane. The network or the sound was not particularly good there. I hope the team from CGE managed to get the gist of what you are saying. Number two, Honorable Matlodi Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, let me start by really appreciating the report from the Commission of Gender Equality. And while I appreciate it and just highlight some few things. One, the Gender Commission, in collecting the data about what is happening in our institutions. And I know, Chair, you started by giving us the background, but the pace, if the commission has to go through every higher education institution with the pace that they are moving, I wonder how is that going to be possible for them to really collect and also give advice to this institution of what needs to be implemented. And if that will happen, what teeth do they have to make sure that these institutions, they really take into heart what is it that they're advising them to do in trying to implement the gender transformation within the tertiary institutions. Now, we do have, I usually say, when you have an anticipation of the output, you need to have sometimes you identify the immediate action plans that you have to implement, and then you've got the long terms. Now you have the GBV that, to me, it needs the immediate action plans. And you do have the long-term ones. To me, example, it will be, if you have to do the gender equality transformation, you have to also, like you highlighted, the issue of the funding for women to be able to be in those critical positions to be decision makers. Now, if we are going to have the system where the GBV is happening, and you hear in the presentation that some universities, their sexual harassment policies are not aligned to what needs to happen, that is a little bit worrisome. And two, the presenter highlighted that most of the universities, majority are men. Now, if you are going to follow the procedure of mediation, and in that positions, the high position they are men, how are they dealing with that? Are the same men that are there dealing with the sexual harassment to mediate against women that are being harassed? So it will be interesting, or it will be really helpful to the committee to know the procedure of how are they going about to make sure that those mediations that, to me, has to be urgent and has to be activated within the higher education system, have to make sure that they implement with immediate effect. Now, I know that is not the easy task, because I don't know also, I'm correcting myself, how do you mediate a sexual harassment? Because investigations have to come, and then at the end, it has to be a criminal offense, one way or another, because presently the GBV is a pandemic within this country, and the higher education institutions are not immune to that. That has to really be attended to in that fashion. Now, I also want to find out, Chair, and it might be in the past, in the 6th Parliament, you got this, the criteria that the Commission is using as they group these universities. What criteria do they use? Looking at one of the challenge in the transformation is a patriarchal system and the cultural diverse that we face. And looking at the historically disadvantaged, we come from different backgrounds, and some of our cultural background are embedded that the way of thinking, the way of doing things need a system that can really be implemented to assist to be different when we go to the higher education centers. Now, when they group also that I tend to believe that the Commission has to also look at that. And if that's the case, that's where they will help me to get the criteria as a group, those higher education, to say how do they go about. And the recommendations, that so far that maybe they identified as the immediate that has to happen, can they maybe share with us which ones have gone through and then the universities have implemented? Or if they implemented, how are they doing the monitoring or the follow-up of those to make sure that it's sustained? It's not, we are going to just show that we will implement, but immediately when they get out of the system, we will go back to the system of what is it that we've been doing before. And maybe, Chair, the key for me is how is the Commission creating a conducive environment for them as they collect the data to make sure that there is a safe space for the people that are coming to give the evidence to be brutally honest on the reality of what is happening within our higher education, tertiary institutions. Is there a system that they created for people to sometimes to be willing to come through? Because others, they might come to give evidence and also give the advice. What do they identify that it can be a system that can work for the higher education in dealing with this transformation? And I think, Chair, for now, that will be, okay, that will be all from me now. Oh, no, sorry, Chair, the last one, it will be the presenter talked about the transforming men and boys and building a respectable relationship. I tend to believe that there might be something that is written that they can share with us of how do they do that relationship building between women and girls and men and boys in creating a respectable relationship within both parties when coming to the higher education institutions. I think that's all from me, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. Honorable Ngubane.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. And I think the presentation as well, we appreciate the presentation by the CGE. Chair, I think this issue that is presented here by CGE, some of us, especially not to be patriarchal, especially us men, we need a lot of education on it as well. I was fortunate enough in my previous experience in a SETA where it was a SETA which was a CEO was a female and a CFO was a female. And then when they were moving into a new building, they started to create a room which was empty, and they call it it's a room for sleeping when you are having a headache, and there's another room for sleeping for breastfeeding. Now, the things like that, you do not understand it when most of the time institutions are headed by male. You start to get it when you give opportunities to female, and you start to see with, oh, there are these important things in our society in which sometimes we overlook as the other gender because we lack education in it. I think I'm just emphasizing that even now I was educated because the institution was headed by female. So the education is continuously important, especially for this subject. And then coming to the second comment, Chair, luckily, I think it coincides with what is being presented here. On Monday, Chair, I did my constitute work again in SWGC, TVET colleges in Soweto, which is, by the way, it's an excellently managed TVET college. Compared, especially, you find it right in the middle of Soweto. And then where there's a contradiction with a TVET college that is right in the city of Johannesburg, is not well managed as this one. But this one, when you enter into it, you think you're in town, the way it is managed. There is something that highlighted, Chair, which is related to this, which we must attend to it quickly. the Ministerial Appeals Committee. There's a challenge with that committee when that committee only lives with the minister. When the minister is gone, it dies. And after that, it dies with every knowledge that it dies with. There's an issue that is outstanding in that TVET college of sexual harassment, which has caused a student to, some of them to resign, even not to be able to study, to go and move to another TVET college, because the harasser made an appeal to this committee and won an appeal and came back. Now you find that these two female students and others, they see this element on a daily basis in their face. So it's one of the things I think we need, Chair, if you can maybe spare your time, Chair, and then try and sit with the minister to attend to this Ministerial Appeal Committee so that they attend to this sexual harassment issue, because it really, really disadvantages females who have reported these individuals, and these individuals have appealed and are now back. It's like these court issues where a rapist is given a bail and he roam around the townships and then mocking everyone that they abused. So I think we need to attend to this, Chair, as a matter of agency, the SWGC sexual harassment case. It's a painful one to hear. And then on the WSU Chair, what we would ask there is the transformation policy adherence. We need to start to have that adherence to be punitive to executive responsible. For example, the equity manager. So I remember when I was working for some private sector have money. When they don't want to adhere to the quotas or to the transformation policy, they will just choose to pay the penalty and live with non-adherence. In this institution of ours, when the transformation policy adherence hasn't been achieved by the equity manager or the equity executive, we need to find a way, Chair, to have punitive measures, even in performance awarding for that executive that has failed to adhere to the transformation policy. Because if we have it for 5 years, an institution do not adhere to it or comply, it means it's just a paper like any other paper that is there just to say the institution has a transformation policy, and then but still people are not complying with it. So I think that's what we need on WSC. We need, even not on the WSC, even on other institutions where you did not comply with them, because we'll keep on having these 5 years of excuses where we have these institutions that are wholly run by male and continuously as if we are the only one that exists on planet. So I think we need to start to make the compliance compulsory, or else you will get punished if you don't comply. And other than that, Chair, is just to say the workplace policies, we need to have policies that enforces this institution. If you don't have a policy, it's difficult to enforce. That institution must have a certain number of females like this and this and this. So this institution must have these policies. And then, Chair, in reminding, remember I spoke to you about this TVET colleges in Eastern Cape. I think it had an element of what we're talking about today. If possibly we can find a report to that TVET college where some it was some deputy principal or chief director who abused everyone in the institution, and he was just the god of that institution. I'll request, Chair, if we can get a report on that so that we get a little bit of satisfaction that that element that was paraded on TV, on ETV, what has been sorted out. I think it was a TVET college, I don't know, Buffalo City or something, that had some shocking abuse of women through looking for employment. If that, I will appreciate, Chair, if we can get that report. I think that's all from my side, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngubane. We will follow up on some of the issues you have raised about the colleges in Eastern Cape and the one in Soweto. And I hope colleagues from CGE, got the gist of your questions as well. Honorable Stacey Lee Khojane.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much for the, sorry, let me just lower my hand, for the presentation. It is much appreciated, and the information is being digested by us. As Deputy Minister had said that we would appreciate if it is sent a bit earlier, but from what I had read, I'm going to start with the WSU, where they had then demonstrated that women dominate more the administrative level, and there's an underrepresentation at the top senior and academic level. So based on the commission, what are the recommendations that are in place to educate women to eventually occupy those top management levels? As my other committee members have indicated, that most of the time when we have these discrimination against women, it is often rooted in a patriarchal system where women do not have the decision-making on their own journey, their own careers. There was also mention of an employment equity manager that is or has a decision-making authority. But this decision-making authority hasn't been quite impactful. So what is the measures that the commission will institute to the university to ensure that they are impactful in this equity representation with their decision-making positions? Because there was another recommendation for another university for an employment equity manager. But how are we going to ensure that this employment equity manager is actually doing the job that they are mandated to do? The HR directorate also, how far is the appointment for those representatives from external entities? And also if we can have a deadline. Again, we do not want to see the recommendations put on paper and there is no expediting of these appointments. And if then there is a performance that we can evaluate in order to understand if these are necessary steps to be taken and if it is impactful. So the deadlines for those employment equity forums, the HR directorate, and also what is the impact of the employment equity manager if thus far it hasn't been working for the university. In relation to the fact that there are no childcare facilities for the employees to enable them to balance their family responsibilities. My question then would be, could this then also not be a factor for the lack of women representation? How do we then now ensure that these policies are expedited to align with the Code of Good Practice? Because many of the universities, their policies are not aligned with the Code of Good Practice of 2022. And we need to then make sure that that women are able to look after their families, but also have an environment that is conducive to working there and being happy also. Then WSU then are launching this year in the Eastern Cape, a WSU My Safe Space. I'm a bit concerned that it's only being launched in 2024. And the main reason for this is for students to be able to then have a safe space to report incidents of sexual harassment or discrimination, particularly to sexual harassment. Why are we only now instituting or implementing something as serious as this in 2024? What were the measures put in place for students prior to 2024 to then report the acts of sexual harassment? What has happened to their cases? How far is it? Who could they have reported to if this is a measure only being implemented in 2024? I want to commend the idea of the GBV book series, which is titled Name It. And I would like to ask then if the commission can do a follow-up on how far that is and if it is being widely spread amongst the students to understand what it means and the impact it will have and how they can get involved with that. On SMHSU, there is a low rate of a labor turnover in the permanent positions. and some of the other portfolio committees also, members, sorry, have touched on this equity of the race not being equally spread across. So now we have a situation where people are rather being employed in, I guess, contractual positions. Then what are they doing about these issues? What is the decision making? Is it because there is a lack of funding? Is it because there is a lack of skills? What is the actual reason that people are not being turned over to have employment on a permanent basis? On the sexual harassment policy, that is also not aligned with the Code of Good Practice on prevention and elimination of harassment. Is it possible that we can please have deadlines and expedite these processes and then have them evaluated if they are aligned? There was also a process of reviewing, or they rather say they are in the process of reviewing and developing new policies. May we also then have a deadline on those for the Commission to review? If there are set deadlines, or I would rather say for policies to be reviewed, is there any way that we can have this fast-tracked? Because these are very serious issues that we deal with, that these policies, when they are implemented and fast-tracked, it will then be able to show in a practical manner. The Commission also recommended that there are relevant stakeholders that the university will be in discussion with. So who are these stakeholders? The reason I ask is, how are these stakeholders going to be instrumental in addressing the employment equity barriers experienced at that specific universities? If we can have an explanation on these relevant stakeholders that have been identified by the Commission, so that we can understand how it would be instrumental to bring them on board. Because if it would not have a positive impact, it would not be necessary to include them, or we should not be spending money on issues where we could have redirected it somewhere else to protect the students at the university. At Fort Hare University, it was noted that there is an absence of quality educational facilities, and that again, they have now assigned an employment equity manager. I ask again, how instrumental is this person in their position, and who is going to monitor the performance and if it has any impact? The lecturers were also said to be hesitant to speak on issues of LGBTQIA+, and that the curriculum also does not represent the members in LGBTQIA+. And so what is being done to recurriculate that? And what are the reasons, if I may ask like that, for the lecturers not being comfortable or hesitant to speak on these issues? Are they reasons that are culturally rooted, maybe religiously rooted? We don't know. Are they being looked at? And what is the transformative process there? The safety of the students is extremely pivotal. And so how will they ensure that they're going to expedite this integrated electronic security system that they call a IESS, that is at Fort Hare? Again, it's very shocking that we are in 2024 and these systems are only being implemented now, or they are only in a planning stage of implementing these systems in order to have students be able to report incidences of sexual harassment, of violence, of intimidation, discrimination, and if there is a system instituted for the employees also. It's on slide 54 for Fort Hare also, there are recommendations from the Commission. They do seem a bit oversimplified. If we can just have a little bit more detail around those recommendations. And then finally, I'm just going to touch on UWC. On slide 62, it's not on this presentation, it is the other report that we received. I just want to look at the title of the report, The State on Gender Transformation at Tertiary Institutions. That is where I'm gathering the information from. On that slide 62, UWC, the recommendations were to continually review their policies. I'm quite concerned about one of them, where they were said to have an unlawful negotiation or a plea with investigators or the hearing panel not to impose dismissal for sexual harassment conviction. Now, how does this help victims or potential victims of sexual harassment? Also, are we then not sending the wrong message to perpetrators or potential perpetrators who might be part of acts of sexual harassment because they know they can be protected by the university, who then has negotiations with these panels that have to then essentially decide what happens to these people? It's as if the students will be walking around saying, what is the point I'm going to report something if it's going to not have any proper result of a conviction or a charge? And then you find yourself in the same space with the person that of your friends. And so I think that was one of the shocking revelations that came from UWC that I hope the commission will follow up and expedite and understand who are those people that have been a part of these negotiations with the panel that then decides on members that have been implicated in sexual harassment. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think I will leave it there for now, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khojane. Honorable Lowe had his hand up, but he keeps on being kicked out because of network issues, and he did indicate that he's going to send us his questions in writing. No, thank you very much, members, for your questions. And I hope the department and CGE had them. I have a number of them. Maybe the first one I'll send to CGE. Maybe give us a brief background on what informed the selection of these 4 institutions, and what were the sampling criteria used to select these institutions, so that at least we are clear that institutions will not come back tomorrow and say we had targeted them and all of that. You see, there are a number of questions that members would have raised, that if we were to even attempt to ask those questions to these institutions, some of them, members, will come back and tell us that we are interfering with their work at these institutions. They will tell us that the Higher Education Act does not allow us to ask them those questions or to tell them how to resolve some of those issues. And that is why at DG, it is important for your department to send us, as a matter of urgency, the presentation on acts, on the legal presentation that we had asked for at the induction, or not rather, the strategic workshop that we had between the committee and the department. That work is extremely important and is extremely urgent, that we would ask you to, or your team, to go and prepare for members, so that when we say Higher Education Act 1, for example, is a hindrance, what are we talking about? So I would like you, DG, and your team to honestly expedite that thing urgently, for, to assist us, to assist you to work well together. So The second question to CGE, I think we appreciate your report, but your report concentrated only on management, and it was very silent on councils. And previously, I know because I was there, we did raise this with the CGE that it does not assist us if we get the gender aspects right in management, but we get them absolutely wrong at council level. Let's take, for an example, the University of Western Cape that we are saying out of the 4, they are the only ones that are leading in terms of women representation at management level. How are they looking at, like, in the council level? If the numbers are 20 males and 10 females at council level, does that not matter? Just because at management level, there's more women than men represented. So we want to make a plea again to you, CGE, that when we do this work with management, let's also do it with their councils, so that we're able to find, to get a clearer picture of if gender transformation in our institutions is taken serious. Maybe you must also explain to us why you did not inquire on the gender representation in councils and why. And maybe to the department DG, did the department not notice this, that the report does not have or does not cover the aspect on gender, or the report does not cover the gender representation at council level? If you did not, if you saw it, what have you done to mitigate it? And if you did not see it, why did you not see it in the department? CGE, which measures are taken to improve the safety of students off campus at all institutions? 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with MUT and VUT where literally these institutions told us that majority of students at their institutions are off campus. They stay off campus. A huge majority of them. So this issue of their safety then is of extreme importance, because majority of students at our institutions are now off campus. What measures are taken to improve the safety of these students who are staying off campus? Are there mechanisms in place to track and manage cases of GBV within campus and off campus? So do we have mechanisms there? If we don't, which mechanisms are required for this? And what resources do you think are needed to achieve this? CGE. What are the plans put in place by CGE to monitor the implementation of employment equity plans by DHET and the tertiary institutions? How often is this done and followed up on? Are there consequences for non-compliant institutions, and how are they held accountable? What happened now? I think, hold on. I think members, you'd agree with me that maybe we must have a follow-up joint portfolio committee meetings with the portfolio committee on police to discuss matters relating to security at our institutions of higher learning, because generally, the cases of GBV continue to happen, and we're told there's security at our institutions. So you might need to have a joint portfolio committee with the portfolio committee on police, so that we're able to discuss some of this. And if the committee agrees, we may need to write to the committee of to the portfolio committee on police, so that we are able to start aligning diaries now before the end of the year, so that we know what we're able to achieve and not achieve this. Department, what role do you play to ensure that all these institutions in the sector have policies and they implement these policies? Because, and by the way, and these policies that they have are in line with the guidelines, different guidelines. So a policy on student accommodation, you know, a policy on sexual harassment is in line with what they talk about, the Code of Good Practice of 2022 and all of those things. How do you ensure, what role do you play in ensuring that all these institutions have got these policies in the sector and they are in line with the Code of Good Practice, they are also implemented? And who in the department is responsible for that? DG, I heard you talk about the Department of Planning. Probably this will fall under them, and want to hear how do they work, how do they plan on working around that part? And how are these institutions held accountable if there are no policies, DG? How are these institutions held accountable if policies are not in line with where they're supposed to be? How are these institutions held accountable if policies are not implemented? You as the department DG must provide us with a list of status of policies related to gender transformation at all PSET institutions. And by PSET institutions, I mean CETAs, CETs, universities, and TVET colleges, including the department itself. So if you can provide us with the list of the status of policies. So you'll say a policy on gender transformation in the department says this. This was when it was put together, sorry, and you know, that is the status is still alive. And then you'll go to another institution and all of that. So we'll need a list of over 100 entities, 50 TVET colleges one by one, 26 universities, or 50 TVETs, 26 universities, 21 CETAs, all other Section 3A entities we have, and non-Section 3A entities we have, like the NSF and others. So if you can give us the status of all of them, all of these policies on gender transformation, we really appreciate. I think the lack of compliance and accountability requires consequence management to be implemented against against boards and councils that do not comply with gender mainstreaming across PSET system. And a formal training and development offered to lecturers, not an ideal vehicle to introduce gender equity along with the role of CGE and other entities. DG, don't you think that having a formal training and development offered to lecturers, don't you think that will help us, you know, to really speed up, you know, this gender equality thing? And then to individual institutions, I think at Walter Sisulu, I want to speak about it. I think members are right. You know, want to understand that equity manager, what was the consequence management method against him by the institution? And if there was none, I think our report then is too soft, because a person draws a salary from a public institution. His role is to get inside the office and clean the office. They get inside the office and sit down on the chair and play games on their phones until child time. And then they knock off, they go home, and they don't do anything. They don't clean, and must be paid at the end of the month. And if you ask questions, again, you will be told that we are entering the workspace CCMA area as the portfolio committee, because these institutions have got the nerve actually to even tell us, some of them, to say that we are actually worse than the apartheid government, DG, your institutions. When we ask them to do one thing, they tell us that even during apartheid, they were never told how to run SRC elections. And they themselves can't run their institutions. You know, this can't be, we can't continue like this. So on Oltazi Sulu, maybe just one question on why has the institution not facilitated a sexual harassment workshop for employees and management for 4 years? What was the reasons given there, CGE? You know, and then I want to concentrate a little bit on Sefako Makgatho, because the Vice Chancellor at DG, you know, we had a full inquiry to determine the fitness to hold office of the Vice Chancellor there. And the Vice Chancellor Sefako Makgatho was accused of sexual harassment at University of Venda previously. And that's why part one of the inquiry was concentrating on that part. But if you look at the report of CGE, you know, it's scary because it says their sexual harassment policy there now at Sefako Makgatho is not in line with the Code of Good Practice of 2022 on the prevention and elimination of harassment in the workplace. DG, that is scary because, and we're not casting aspersions, but we're saying, at least because the Vice Chancellor would have been accused of sexual harassment previously, that his new institution would have, including him, they would have made sure that they then review the sexual harassment policy of this new workplace and make it watertight so that it deals against perpetrators of sexual harassment. And this has not been done. Department, what are we doing? Where have you been all along on this matter? In fact, one of the recommendations of that report would have said that the department must play an active role in making sure, or in consolidating these institutions' policy or statute on sexual harassment. That is one of the recommendations that that particular report would have said. Why and when will this sexual harassment policy be reviewed at Sefako Makgatho? And DG, if you can just maybe inform us who's responsible for that, so that we're able to hold people accountable now. Has there been any sexual harassment incidents reported, CGE, at this institution? If so, how many? And how were they dealt with? If not, why? At the University of Fort Hare, this is the Vice Chancellor who told us that we're worse than apartheid, DG. Says this committee is worse than apartheid. There's no transformation here, DG. There's no gender transformation. There's no transformation. You know, there's no representative of persons with disabilities at the top management level. CGE, if you can tell us, I know we will ask them these questions themselves directly, but what is the reason for this according to you? What plans did this institution say they have to mitigate against this? And if you have looked at their recent adverts, do you think they encourage employment equity? And when was the last, what do you call it? When was the last advert or top management? When was it filled? If there was any vacancy, when was the vacancy or declared? When was it filled? And if you looked at the advert, does it really, encourage employment equity? And if so, does it mean people with disabilities do not apply at that institution? And if they apply, does it mean that there are no suitable candidates who would have been who would have applied then being shortlisted? Or what is the problem there? If you can just give us a comprehensive thing. This institution, DG, the report says it has over-representation of African men at the top and senior management level. In fact, they've got 14 out of 18 African men. 14 out of 18 men. It's a very masculine environment at top and senior management. In fact, we also want to know here, when was the last vacancy declared at the top and senior management level? Why was there no attempt to appoint a woman in those positions? And if there was, can you give us a report? Are they claiming that there were no female applicants or the females who applied were not suitable candidates? TG, this is, yeah, and then maybe let me, in the interest of time, let me pause there. The Western Cape, I think I was covered by one member. I see Honorable Shugambano, you have re-raised your hand. Let me take you, and then from there I'll ask the Deputy Minister, the DG, and then whoever is responsible from the department will come immediately after CGE. Honorable Shugambano.
Chair, how are you? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we did hear you. We're just a bit faint, but we did hear you. We're still hearing you.
No, I was worried. I thought maybe you did not hear me, but I wanted to re-raise my point because there were just 2 points that I was actually raising. So if you are saying you did hear me, then I'm covered. But mainly that's what I want. I wanted the breakdown of the race in terms of representation in all these institutions that the commission has actually recommended. And also that they must give us a report on the focus of the students, because according to myself, the report is mainly focused on the management and the executive of the institution and speaks less about the students, that which we are more concerned of their safety and also their leadership representation. What are their institutions saying with regard
I will
to that?
still in a meeting.
Yeah.
Oh.
So those are the things that I wanted to raise, Chair. So since while you are saying you heard me, then I'm fine.
Yeah, sorry for disturbing you, Honorable Shikwamban. We did hear you, my brother. Dr. Shuping, I'll start with you and your colleagues at CGE. I hope you got all the questions down. And then from there, we will go to the ministry and the department, or to the department and the ministry. And Dr. Shuping and your team from CGE.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Just as an opener, Honorable Chairperson, to indicate that this report, we concluded it and launched it during this financial year. As such, the Commission would still engage with the university regarding the progress in the implementation of its recommendations. So a lot of the questions that were asked actually relates to the progress that we will be obtaining from the university in as far as our recommendations are concerned. So that engagement is yet to take place, and we will be issuing a progress report which details the progress and the responses of the university in as far as our recommendations were made. To start with, Chairperson, I did not, due to the time that was provided, it's about 30 minutes, we prepared the presentation based on only the observations, and hence the details were not necessarily given. When I have to answer the question of the different races in the representation of the universities, I'll just go through each of the universities in as far as its representation is concerned. Let me start with Walter Sisulu. With Walter Sisulu, in its top management position, it's out of 13 positions, there are 5 positions which it's 5 African women and 5 African men, and 3 foreign nationals which are men as well. Now you can see there to the exclusion of Indians, white persons, and coloreds in that top management position. And in as far as senior management is concerned, also you will note that there is no representation of white persons. There's only one representation of colored persons, one representation of colored persons between 1 man and one woman. So generally, it's over-representation of African persons. And the next university, with Sefako Makgatho, there is no representation of colored persons there. There is no representation of Indian persons in the higher levels of the university there. And you would note that between Indians, for this university, Indians and coloreds, it's very less numbers at the top management. So in the general picture is that there is representation for African men and women, but there is lesser representation for Indians and colored persons. And then the next university, Fort Hare. With University of Fort Hare, out of top management 6 positions, there are 3 African men, and then also the representation of 1 African woman, 1 Indian at the top management position. Again, the representation of white and colored Indians, it's lesser again compared to Africans. So Africans are mostly represented at this university, and hence the commission made just general finding to say there's a skew representation. So the picture we are getting is that there is no representation of white persons, including in the senior management, there's only 2 white persons, one which is a South African citizen and one a foreign national. So again, the overrepresentation relates to African persons. So it is indeed a process that will have to take place in as far as these universities are concerned. And then with respect to another university, University of Western Cape, at the executive level of the university, From the total of 7 employees or the numbers there, we have 2 colored men and 2 colored women. You will see in that level that there is more representation of coloreds than African, and there is no representation of white persons. And at the next level from there, which is Dean's level, out of 7, we have the 2 colored men that are represented and 1 colored woman. And you'll see African men are not represented at that level. African women are not represented, pardon me. There's only 1 African man who's represented at that level. So with the University of Western Cape, it's a little bit different from other universities in its representation, in as far as the colors are concerned. It does have in that level of deans also the Indians representation of 2 men there. So I believe that is the information regarding the racial representation at the universities. The overall observation is that there is more Black men and women represented at these universities, and mainly men are the ones who are representing at the top management positions. And going to the bottom of the echelons there, you would have noted that a lot of women are then more represented across the universities, which has a Black African women at those levels. Right. In as far as the question that related to the gender-based violence issues, to say our presentation spoke a lot into the issues relating to the staff and not necessarily the students. The report does cover initiatives that addresses the students' initiatives that are in place that the universities are engaged in. I will make an example with Walter Sisulu University. In the report at page 24, the printed version of the report, the report highlights various initiatives that are being undertaken to address gender-based violence, and various power talks shows that are taking place at the university in addressing gender-based violence. So at a high level, Honorable Chair, the Commission for Gender Equality does indicate in its report what initiatives are there dealing with student safety, transport, and accommodation. They are outlined there. However, the observation is that they are inadequate in as far as they creating that conducive environment. The question also went further to say, does the Commission engage now the students? In a lot of our previous reports, we did have engagement with the student representative councils and the students as well, so that we can have their version as well regarding the developments that are taking place at the universities. However, in the previous 2 financial years, we did not directly engage the students. Part of our plans is to engage the student with the progress report, so that we can also have their voices. If you recall, during the opening that I made, I did indicate that part of our annual performance plan now is that we will be engaging the students. We developed some questionnaires that will be used through mobile phones and emails, so that we gather data. We will be sharing some questionnaire which comprises of our findings around the universities in general, not only a specific university, so that can inform our report that we're going to be tabling as a holistic approach to address the issues of gender-based violence at schools. So I think at heart, although in this specific report, we did not have the voice of the students in it, we did go through the programs and evaluate the programs that are in place and made comments there in as far as their improvement. What you will note is that a lot of universities did not have these programs in place or policies in place at all. Hence, the progress will then inform us to say, how are these universities doing? And also in that report that we'll be going to be receiving from progress, we will engage then the students and student representative councils regarding the proposed initiatives and solutions so that we can take these issues forward. And I'm just checking my notes, Honorable Chair. The question from Honorable Maseko was that what the powers of the CGE is having in as far as enforcing its powers or its recommendations. I think this was captured well in a recent judgment of Agrodata by the Supreme Court of Appeal, whereby the Commission for Gender Equality was a amicus in that matter, where the Supreme Court found that the powers of Human Rights Commission were not necessarily are not binding in that regard. That process of court, we are still taking it on appeal. We will be filing some of our arguments regarding the need for the powers of the Chapter 9s to be recognized and to be influential in promoting equality. Although that is a minor setback on in as far as the enforcing the recommendations, what we have observed, Chairperson, is that in a lot of progress that we have been receiving from the universities, we didn't necessarily have a university that deliberately did not address some of our recommendations. A lot of the recommendation as far as representation is concerned in the workplace, as you know, it is as well governed and monitored by the Department of Employment and Labor. There were several developments regarding the need for a quota system to be put in place in addressing the employment equity, because it's one of the recommendations that takes time for it to materialize, or that is not being implemented per se. And given that now within the mandate of the Department of Employment and Labor and the recent court's development in addressing this aspect, I think that there's still progress that is to be done here. At the moment, we were not having any influence or power to compel the university to appoint certain persons because of challenges that were still taking place in court. But with the current developments of a system in place, sectorial determination system, whereby the minister will be empowered to be doing certain, maybe the recommendations on appointment of certain persons. And we hope that that framework, legal framework, will then assist in addressing this problem. Because a lot of universities will be citing that they don't have, or entities will be citing that they don't have either resources and so on, but heavily relying on the fact that there's nothing in law that, or we could, as the commission, we are limited in as far as saying, when you come back, please appoint this. We can, within our powers, delved into the employment policies. What we will note as part of the employment equity plan is what we raised as the barriers that the universities will raise as a reason for not being able to transform. We follow progress on those means to see that how are they being addressed. I will make an example with one barrier. They would say the one university, they are poaching each other's employees because the environment or location is not convenient. So people use certain universities as a stepping stone in their career and end up leaving another university. So that is a challenge that a lot of them were raising. However, in our progress report, we will be able to be more direct in responding to say, in as far as these barriers that were identified, has much been done so that these barriers are addressed through various platforms that are within the employment and labor practices. So progress report will then be provided there in Honorable Chairperson. The question regarding the panel, there was a question regarding the handling of gender-based violence matters as a or our recommendations implementation as immediate, and also the long-term means. In as far as gender-based violence is concerned, when we receive the reports from the universities, we investigate through our complaints department cases of sexual harassment in the workplace. We immediately engage investigations and urge the universities to conduct investigations and finalize them in line with their policies. So in as far as those cases needing immediate attention, we do address that. And in the development of the policies themselves, where they are lacking, clearly there is no any means in place that is providing safety for the students, because the universities will be using its custom in addressing the discrimination. Hence, the commission made these recommendations, and some of the universities will then cite the processes of their council. You would know, Honorable Chairperson, that the council also is they are operating in accordance under the Higher Education Act as well. So they will be saying they need also to follow their internal processes in approving these policies. So we would, hence one of our recommendations was that this should be expedited. I'm glad that the minister is here, because this is one of the reasons the commission decided now during this financial year that we should engage the minister in as far as these processes of finalizing the policies, of implementing the policies are concerned, that we should engage it and come up with one policy that can address for all TVET colleges as well as the universities, to say these are the standards in place or the timelines in as far as the investigations, approval of the policies, because that will then assist us in ensuring that we are the GBV cases are handled within a stipulated time frame. Currently, every university is doing differently from they are doing the handling the cases differently, which creates this problem, and they will be citing different reasons of the council sitting and so on, which appears that it is also a compliance issue that they must do, having these meetings and processes in place at the university. So without that regulated environment, it creates that gap that it seems as if there is now interference in when we say expedite this, we are saying disregard the compliance processes that you also must adhere to in bringing up these policies. So therefore, that need for that engagement and uniform and a standardized system will come in handy here. And the other question was regarding the criteria that the commission is using in identifying the universities. Through complaints handling, we'll identify the several complaints that we informs our investigations as well. When we receive certain complaints from universities, also through our media monitoring, we are informed by some of these observations to select certain universities and call them for transformation. At the moment, I think with these universities, if we are not left with one or two, we would have exhausted the list of the universities. I think what is important to note, Chairperson, as well, is that through the engagement of the commission, universities start to making progress, which is also acknowledged by the minister. They start to move, they start to see the need of this. Now, and hence we uncover now that these universities that are before us today, most of them did not have these policies at all. Some of them were not even, they indicated that they were still drafting these policies. So they have been utilizing some of the policies that were submitted to the commissions with the policies which were compiled in the 1990s, very old policies, which do not take into account the legislative development. So as a positive means, when unfortunately within the capacity of the commission, we were not able to at once call all the universities at once and address these issues. Hence, our approach of this financial year is that it should then we should address it from the executive level going downwards, because it will expedite it. Because by the time we reach, for an example, other colleges, the time is moving, and we are possibly sitting today with the colleges that do not have these policies in place. And we only uncover during our hearings that this is taking place. And unfortunately, at the current moment, the Commission is having an office in each province, does not have district or regional offices. So within its constraints, we are trying to then monitor progress and try to select the universities based on the analysis that we are doing through complaints and media monitoring to address them. And I do acknowledge that that doesn't mean it suffices, that for the upcoming financial years, we will still be having universities that don't have these policies. Hence, our approach for this financial year is that if we approach it from the executive level, there would be introduction of these policies, and we would be in a position to demand that every university should be having that uniform regulations or guidelines. So then other questions related to the implementation or in as far as our recommendation is concerned, Chairperson, there was a question regarding alignment of the policies. The Commission will be engaging the universities. We wrote correspondences to the universities, informing them that we will be having these engagements with them as a follow-up. Every year, the Commission is doing that, and we are not in a position at the moment to be releasing a progress herein. We are still evaluating the information that is received from different universities. Hence, we are not at the moment in a position to be saying, has it been finally aligned? Has it been finally approved, these policies as we recommended? So we would at the later stage then inform the committee regarding the progress in as far as those questions are concerned. And also the impact of through the report, there was some indication regarding the influence and the impact of different initiatives, including the book that is being published there, that the university is using as a guidelines and motivation to push awareness and education at the university premises. I think with this approach that we are taking, that I introduced at the beginning, we will be able to gather feedback from students. Does it speak to them? So that we understand that these initiatives, are they impactful to students? So our progress report will inform that process. And then in as far as the questions regarding why some of the positions are not finalized, or they are not permanent employments and contracts are utilized. In evaluating the information that we received, we request also the employment equity forums reports from the universities, so that we can go through them and see what is outstanding or what is not being addressed with some of these. We will find that some of the universities would not have this, despite as being a requirement for the employment equity and labor, so that the minutes should be there. The minutes should be discussing these loopholes or the vacant positions and the filling thereof. So lack of following processes that are in place leads now to these problems, and leads to hardcore, the problem or the core issues leading to lack of transformation not being clear enough. And hence the part of the recommendation of the Commission speaks to that. Once the role of the employment equity manager is being supported, because some universities do have it, but they are not supported sufficient or do not have necessary powers to ensure that they are driving transformation in the workplace. They are just being used as a tick box, for an example, for lack of a better word, instead of ensuring that proper minutes are being done. So part of our recommendations, we do go through that. Hence, we would find that barriers that are identified are not actually addressed for years. which is then that consent that goes back to the processes of the compliance processes of the universities themselves, because these issues are not being addressed. Also, as well as the composition of these, it is legislative requirements that the composition of these forums, composition of these the SRC should also encompass be inclusive in its nature, to address the question that is raised about why, if they are all men in the top and senior management, then how are these the composition of these forums are. We do look into that, and where we find that the composition is only men, only women, or is not representative of different cultures, we do recommend that should be the case. And also the minutes and what is being discussed, where those forums exist, a lot of the times we find that the issues of transformation are not necessarily being addressed or dealt with. And part of our recommendations is that appointment of the implement equity manager is essential to be at the top and senior management, because that is where they have this power. We ask for the key performance areas of these managers, of the senior managers. And a lot of the time we find that they don't have transformation targets if within their key performance areas. And so our recommendation then speaks to those, so that they, when we engage them through this, so that they ensure that their key performance also have this, because then it is pointless who is to be held accountable if all the key performance areas do not speak to transformation targets. The question that was raised was also regarding the relevant stakeholders that we encourage the universities to be engaging. We, because some of the factors that are raised by the university regarding the creation or the availability of the facilities to the facilities providing for the needs of the employees, childcare facilities, also the safety issues, gender-based violence issues in the work in the university and outside the university space. The university clearly faces not only internal or within its campus these challenges. They need to continuously engage with the departments, the various with the police services, the different various departments. We engage them also in as far as transformation is concerned, to engage forums that represents persons with disabilities or underprivileged persons and organizations, so that they can source and obtain and consult them regarding the creation of conducive environment. It is pointless when the universities are not exposed to these initiatives through these other forums, instead of them holding it within them and without being open to other challenges that some of the organizations and the departments have already data, which can simply assist the department in ensuring that representation of persons with disabilities is addressed. So part of the barriers would be that they don't have enough persons with disabilities. They've been trying to recruit them through various means, but they don't receive them. But if you don't engage relevant stakeholders here, like the Department of Labor through their database to assist the other organizations dealing with the disabilities, then the universities end up being limited and end up reporting that they don't get enough. The other aspect also is the conducive environment itself, whereby the inclusivity to them only speaks to physical needs, but does not take into account factors of mental and wellness of the employees as well. So those are the stakeholders in this regard relates to those other universities as well as good practices. They can also engage them. So those are some of the stakeholders that we refer the universities to also cite good practices, to inform their decisions as well, to invite them to their committees and different forums as well, so that they create that conducive environment and not only attract persons. so that they can retain them. And then the security system chairperson regarding the safety of the campuses and environment of the universities. It is a concern to the Commission for Gender Equality. And some of the universities that we recommended them to implement with immediate effect, some of the security parameters so that it provides that safety to the environment. What is clear is that only when the Commission engages these universities for the first time, we are receiving these responses that only now initiatives are being in place. Rare we find initiatives that have already been existing, apart from intervention of the Commission. And hence you will see these reports on this of this university speaks about progress. And indeed, it's a concern that at this stage, these systems are not there. Meaning, without intervention of the Commission, being within the mandate of the university and the Department of Employment and Labor, it means there is lack of that collaboration between these departments. I therefore welcome the proposal, Chairperson, that I think with the joint sitting committees, these can also come together so that we go to that one direct problem that at this stage and time, we cannot afford to have the security systems not being in place. Other universities use advanced security systems in place, electronic and so on. Others do not. So therefore, there's this inconsistency as well. And we will continue as the Commission to do as much as we can to try and uncover these universities that do not have these means in place. Just about other the other question related to the recommendations of University of Fort Hare has been maybe oversimplified. Let me just go to the report of the Fort Hare. Just a moment, Chairperson. The first recommendation we gave in as far as University of Fort Hare is concerned, we indicated that it must implement various programs to ensure that representation of designated groups impacts its transformation journey. This recommendation we did in our engagement with the university elaborated. It speaks to, they have various programs in place. But those programs, when you look at them in paper, they are very good. But when you look at this representation and lack of representation of designated groups, it's not there. There is no transformation at all. Hence, this recommendations is brought to say it must ensure that it speaks to and impacts on its transformation. Then that addresses, just to give context to the recommendation, that it's from the basis that there are policies in the report that we outlined under this section of this university. However, those are not implemented and they are not showing any impact. So it is then pointless to have good recommendations, but then implementation is a problem. Hence, we need then further we will be engaging the Department of Higher Education regarding how we can go about addressing some of these aspects in a broader sense. And also, the second recommendation, we spoke about the inclusive and elimination of barriers affecting persons with disabilities through planned activities and approved policies. Again, their policies do speak to this. They have activities in place, but at the end of the day, the barriers are not being addressed. So here we are sitting with a unique situation where policies are in place, initiatives are in place, but the representations remains there, which brings now that a broader discussion regarding the need for the laws to compel these universities to start including persons with disabilities and underrepresented persons in their representation. The sexual harassment policy, I think it speaks for itself that it has not been reviewed and approved. Thank you, Chairperson. And then the aspect of the negotiation or the mediation of complaints. This aspect, it's informed by the fact that when why the Commission emphasizes the need to ensure that the policy in handling harassment and sexual harassment in the workplace is up to date. It's exactly for that reason. The policy is clear on what processes, informal and formal processes, can be there. And it's also clear that at no stage a person should be forced to negotiate or to be forced to follow an informal process. However, from the due to lack of these policies in place and they are not being aligned, then it leaves that problem because some of these policies don't specifically mention these aspects. Also, education across about these policies, where the universities failed to give education around these policies, there is no indication. I mean, it is clear that they failed to give education. Now, students and staff are not aware that some of the cases cannot necessarily be negotiated, and it gives that impression that they can be indeed informal negotiations, or they are compelled to follow informal processes. Hence, when we evaluate and analyze these policies, we look at those specific provisions, and we urge them to be specifically, expressly stated that there is no one is compelled. And through our educations and other programs, when we engage the universities in various platforms, we do take them through this, and also labor-related processes, we do take them through that. But however, the acknowledgement here is that yes, there are isolated cases where these are taking place, where the Commission engaged and identified the cases. We ensured that the formal process was followed and that there is no misleading that the complainant was compelled to follow that. You will recall, Chairperson, that union representatives are also involved at some stages during the labor processes, disciplinary processes. We uncovered that a lot of these unions, some of them do not even advise properly the complainants about their processes. So this will happen maybe not at the side of the Commission, whereby they will be negotiating the possible outcomes of the case there outside. And hence we engage the union representatives as well through our various initiatives that this should not be the case whereby people are forced to undergo this process. Hence, our need for education must also reach the union representative at different senior management levels so that this aspect does not go across, and this expectation of negotiation can be addressed. And then the other question, Chairperson, it's relating to the inclusion of boys and girls in our initiatives. I think it's very important for men and boys in part of the education department of the Commission, its initiatives, is that the inclusion of men and boys or their engagement is very crucial and essential in addressing inclusivity and gender transformation. Some of just to highlight a few, it's assisting breaking the stereotypes, engaging both boys and girls in gender transformation activities. And it does assist in breaking that culture and create inclusivity. And gender stereotypes and biases, if we don't have this engagement, it creates that problem between these the genders regarding what are the expectations and what support can be given to break stereotypes and biases. Also promote mutual understanding and empathy. We encourage shared responsibility and achieving of gender equality. So that is the essence of some of this engagement or the programs which speaks to inclusivity of these students. And I think you rightfully said our gap of not directly engaging through these hearings, maybe the students, it's a gap that we will have to look into. And as we said, we will also engage, we will be engaging them, and some of these items we will be taking them through, and we hope in our report we will outline now our engagement with the students and the data. We will be sharing it in responding to these means, whether they are transforming and what means can be working for them, because nothing should be done without your inclusion as any person. I already addressed the issue of criteria. The council question, Chairperson, yes, our report does not have representation on the council. I think it was based on or informed by the employment equity legislation and other legislation that we have cited in our presentation. I think it's important aspect that we should also take it into account. The Higher Education Act prescribed or regulates the appointment of the council, and it says that some of the members of the council are appointed by the minister, some representative are students and some are not students. I think it is important that we have that so that we can engage the minister in as far as the representation at council is concerned. The point is therefore thus noted, Chairperson, that it is important that the council is also inclusive and representative. And I think in our future engagement, it's important that we have this, and therefore also engage the minister in as far as its delegation of persons to be representing it in the council as per the legislation. We will definitely embrace the input. And in as far as the safety of the student in and outside the campus, you will note the programs that are outlined there do speak to the issues of students that they are facing in and outside campus. And one of the reasons we encourage them to engage stakeholders is that for those stakeholders who are giving accommodation to students, also they must be properly accredited. It's the one aspect that we continuously addressing with the university, that in its policies, this must be there as well. And those accredited facilities must also ensure that they are there and they have been monitored in as far as incidents that are taking place and affecting children are concerned. We noted in some of the complaints that we were investigating that when an incident happened outside the universities, some of the universities will receive it as if it's an SAPS only related aspect, because maybe there was a crime that has been committed outside the university or at a function elsewhere which is not linked to the university. However, we did stress that aspect, that engagement with other contractors of the university is important, security as well, training of the security, training of the service providers of the university. That is some of the aspects that we look for when we request this. And as you would have seen in the reports, the registers and these trainings are not being provided, and that is now what is creating this making this situation worse because of lack of means in place to ensure that these are taken into account. And I think the other questions regarding how the employment equity plans of the universities are held to account. I think it's the opportunity of the minister to address that aspect there, Chairperson. I'm just checking, Chairperson, if there's no other question that I would have left. In as far as the employment equity managers' roles or their failure to adhere to their roles and consequence management is concerned, I think the reason why the Commission specifically asked for the employment equity managers' appointment is that we scrutinize the minutes that they are doing, the work that they are doing, And in absence of these, it's difficult to see what is the role of this implement equity manager and also consequence management. We, through our progress report that we'll be receiving, we will look into that to see what consequence has been taken into account. Because at the end of the day, if there was a clear powers to a person and people decided not to do their work that they are appointed for, it is concerning. Hence, you will note in our recommendation, we said, even if the employer, the employment equity manager failed, the accounting officer also is not automatically exonerated. They should still be held to account. And hence, even this can subject the universities to claims or civil suit because of certain individuals failing to hold their persons accountable. So therefore, in our progress report, that is what we look for, to say the means to hold these persons accountable. And already the gaps that we pick up in the performance agreements is that these functions are not there at all. So it's a problem if it's only a ticking box exercise. And hence, we want us to ensure that these systems are in place, and then it makes it then easier to then ensure that the implementation and accountability takes place. Because even if the department or the university wishes to take steps against someone, but if it's clear that they don't have sufficient powers, they will not necessarily may not be successful in whatever suit they may be faced with. Hence, we encourage that this must be in place and key performance areas must be very clear so that people can be held to account. So some of the shortcomings are these things that accountability cannot be taken because of the division of duties, but it wouldn't be escaping the CEO at the end of the day in ensuring that the employment equity plan is adhered to. I'll just take the last question, Honorable Chairperson, here regarding the questions raised in as far as the advertisements are concerned for University of Fort Hare, and whether their advertisements are inclusive of persons with disability. To respond to the question, Chairperson, in their employment equity plan, they do identify the barriers and lack of conducive environment and resources as some of the barriers to the inclusion of persons with disabilities. And then it goes back again, Chairperson, to say it is pointless if we have these policies in place. The advertisement may encourage these applications, but however, the barriers, when they remain and they are not addressed, it really it's a step going backwards. So until the stage where collaboratively we can come up with that strategy to combine our efforts with the Department of Labor in enforcing the employment equity plans, and also the Department of Higher Education and Training in ensuring these are adhered to, I think we will forever then be dealing with this. Hence, the Commission in this current financial year did not select new universities to be engaging, but it went to say, now we want to engage on all these universities that we engage on in colleges, to say, here there is a need for regulation, legislation, or that upon our report, we will be advising what best can be done and recommending. And I think with that collaborated effort, that will take us there. Because at the end of the day, Chairperson, the reality is that there is this policies in place saying inclusivity, the forums are in place, but implementation is not working. And hence the appointment is not working. And that challenge of saying, can we then force any person to appoint? It's that legislative gap that needs collaborated effort so that we can come up with a legislation that can once and for all enable that sectorial determinations. And then from there, the regulatory bodies can easily now hold these entities accountable to say, you are compelled to appoint here because you have failed, therefore you need to appoint such and such a person in this. So with the development of that process that will be outlined or maybe outlined by the minister, I think that will assist in dealing with the root cause of the problem here. Chairperson, over to you, unless there's another question that I may have skipped, Chairperson, that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Dr. Shuping, thank you very much for your responses. Is everybody covered from CGE?
Yes, we are covered, Chairperson. My colleague is covered. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. DG, your turn.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I wish to, on behalf of the department, to express our appreciation for the report that is very specific. Of course, Chair and Honorable the Deputy Minister and honorable members, the focus of the report has selected a sample of universities. And I am quite sure that most of the recommendations that are made and the findings that are made in the report will apply to a broader population. And we as a department will read the report in that context. Chairperson, there are instruments in place that inform the work that we do. Flowing from our Constitution, Section 9(1), it is clear what our task is. Section 9(3) also indicates may not do, and therefore the requirements that our internal policies and instruments are aligned to the spirit and letter of the law. May I appreciate the specific findings speaking to each of the institutions that are part of the sample, and indicate that in this meeting, I've got the Deputy Director General for Universities with me, who's directly going to help me to make sure that we communicate these findings to the institutions, and we work with institutions to making sure that there's full compliance, and there is no doubt about that determination of the department in doing so. DDG Gasa is here, who's overall responsible for the unit that deals with inclusive education as well as gender equity. And there's Ms. Ceci Mahlobo-Kwane, who's here with us, who is the director responsible for this area. We will convene as a department with all these experts and committed officials of our department to look into better ways, of getting the resolutions and the findings of the Commission for Gender Equality to be implemented at a more successful rate than it is reported. It is also important that we also have the CFO in our department being here, because Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act 53 of 2003 does say something about involvement of Black women in new enterprises and increasing their access to economic activities and skills training in the system. We will look into this in the light of the new structures we have established for ensuring, compliant, procurement within the system. We are a big procurer of goods, and therefore an opportunity exists for us to set up opportunities for the implementation of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act. The Higher Education Amendment Act number 9 of 2016 that empowers our minister to intervene in university matters provides us with the leeway to ensuring that the recommendations of the Commission on Gender Equality are implemented. But I have noted that in the number of recommendations that are made that are specific to the universities, the issue around alignment of existing policies with the code of good practice, on pregnancy and after the birth of a child, is repeatedly being raised. And the code of good practice for 2022, also in terms of the sexual harassment policies of universities not being exactly aligned to the code is a matter we've identified, and we are definitely going to ensure that in our sexual harassment workshops for employees, these are prioritized as it is recommended by the Commission. We have also taken into account that the SADC Protocol on Education and Training, as well as the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the International Labour Organization Remuneration and Convention 110 of 1951, and the International Convention on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights of 1996, which are regional and international instruments at our disposal, have not been utilized to their fullest by either the oversight system of our department as well as the internal policies of our institutions. And we would like to generalize broadly to include the entire post-school education and training system, and not just the institutions that have been cited. I'm happy that the team is here. We are going to consolidate our responses to the questions that have been asked and ensure that these are specifically responded to. But what is important to me is the opportunity to question and find answers to the efficiency of the instruments we are utilizing in the system, and see to what extent these can be revised to ensure that the department continue to improve in this regard. It is important that a society free from all forms of gender inequality is established in our country. And the Department of Higher Education and Training would like to be counted amongst the institutions that are leaders in ensuring that these noble goals of our constitution and policy, and as part of the international instruments and international conventions we've committed ourselves to, are achieved. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our chair for the questions that he has asked, and members for the questions that we have asked. We trust that in our responses to these questions, we are also going to take lessons learned from areas where in the nuances of the questions we may not in our policies have covered, or in our internal policies and institutions have covered. I have taken note that at Sefako Makgato University, over and above the fact that the sexual harassment policy is not in line with the code of good practice, that the university is also having difficulties in addressing employment equity barriers. I've looked to the fact that at Forte University, the university does not have a policy in place to encourage an inclusive environment for LGBTQIA persons. We also have seen that at the same university, there's an effort to ensure that sexual harassment and GBV policy is aligned to the code. But this has not been finalized, and we are going to make sure that this is achieved. At the University of Western Cape, it is indicated that the university should benchmark, to improve their transformation imperatives at top management level, and that the planned initiatives, to ensure that effective programs to further transformation in the workplace are achieved, finalized, implemented, and we start to report improvement in this regard. We have noted that the Commission have urged us to explore how to assist the gender unit, of the University of Western Cape in ensuring that an appointment of a researcher to the unit to increase the capacity is done, and that the Office of the Deputy Vice Chancellor, is allocated resources, and these are the matters that will draw attention to the to our institutions, and we understand that these are not limited to only those institutions that are there. Dr. Sotikwa will be working with the team to ensuring that this is done, and Ms. Nolo Azikasa help us to improve our instruments for oversight, to ensuring that the system is fully compliant and we contribute to a society free of all forms of gender inequality. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Director General. DDG Sotkiko, I saw your hand go up and then it went down again. I hope you are covered. Deputy Minister Kondo.
I just wanted to add to DG's comments, Chair. I don't know if I'm allowed to, or otherwise I can do it in writing if we've run out of time.
Fine, you can add quickly, DDG.
Yes, I just want to say, Honourable Chair and members and Minister and to the DG, that the Gender Commission's work with the universities has in fact showed returns. In our own reports, we were able to establish that following the meeting with the Gender Commission, Sefako Makatu this year reviewed its sexual harassment policy. And in fact, Chair, with the level of sexual harassment that was taking place more recently, I note that reports were sent to the Portfolio Committee and to the department. The Vice-Chancellor, in fact, was quite responsive and in a positive way in protecting the head of facilities, who sadly has resigned. I just thought I should stress that because there are some good things that are happening in our institutions. And the secondly, Chair, is the alignment. I heard the Gender Commission, and I think I really would encourage that we meet with the Gender Commission, because we have established alignment. We have documents that are currently in place, particularly around safety. We have worked with SAPS, and Chair, we are happy to share our reports, the work that we've done in this regard, so that as you prepare to meet with the Portfolio Committee on Police, that you have sight of our report. And it would be sad if we don't acknowledge the work that SAPS has been doing together with the intelligence unit in SAPS, with the department over the last 2 or 3 years, to help arrest some of the safety and violence issues on campus, particularly against women. And so I just want to use this opportunity to acknowledge the work that SAPS has been doing with us. We appreciate it so much. They've done workshops for all the security officials with the universities, and I know they have done similar workshops with the TVET sector. So they are instrumental in our solutions, Chair. I just thought it's really important that one acknowledges the role they have played thus far. And they are also assisting us in developing a policy framework for safety so that there's a uniform view. We've been urging the universities incrementally, and I know that work is gaining traction with time. Yes, there are budget issues, limitations, as indicated by the Gender Commission, which we are attending to. And then just a last, Chair, you've asked for a status report on gender transformation. We certainly have heeded that, particularly with what is happening in council and how those appointments reflect alignment with policy. We are also tracking that, and we are happy to share that work with you. In fact, the two colleagues in the room who work with me on this work would be able to generate those reports. Thank you very much, Chair, for the short opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sotikwa. Dr. Mimi Kondwa, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me echo the sentiments of my colleague around the report that's been presented by the CGE. Yes, they are, areas of serious concern. And not to belabor what's already been stated, for an institution to have a sexual harassment policy in place, but you have no workshops, capacity workshops around that, that particular policy, that's concerning. And the absence of policies that accommodate parental obligations and childcare. And you also have policies that are not really speaking to the legislation. One of the institutions, they had a sexual harassment policy that was not compliant with the Code of Good Practice, and other policies making reference to non-existent legislation. That is a concern. From my end, Chair, and as the Deputy Minister responsible for issues pertaining to representation and gender-based violence, I commit to really engaging Dr. Shuping and the CGE extensively around this report and seeking guidance from them on how we can best fulfill our role as a department. Chair, you also raised some very pertinent issues around what have we done, to mitigate some of the issues that have, clearly issues in the report. I think DDG Sotikwa touched on the issue of council representation. I share your sentiments that perhaps it's time as a department that we've played a more active role in ensuring, that we help institutions of higher learning consolidate their policies around issues of representation in GBV. Chair, I also second the idea of having a joint meeting with the portfolio committee on police, but I would also encourage that we invite the portfolio committee on women, children and persons with disabilities. We cannot have conversations around gender transformation and GBV without really having them there, because they will need to also, help us. You see, the issue of GBV and representations, the issues are multi-layered issues, and they really require a multifaceted approach, and where we will hold hands as, the Department of Higher Education with the Department of Women, Police, Social Development. It's not something that we can see to by ourselves, and we really need to hear from, the portfolio committee on women around this. Chair, I want to just talk about the power of Chapter 9 institutions. And I think members have mentioned, have raised the point that what happens with these recommendations, and what if, an institution of higher learning just, does not implement these recommendations. Chair, you will know that at some point, the Auditor General, the Office of the Auditor General did not have teeth. It had no teeth, let alone teeth that could bite. And it was through the work of the relevant portfolio committee that legislation was amended to ensure that, this particular Chapter 9 institution is capacitated. And I know that when we talk about the Public Service Commission as well, there is legislation in the pipeline that will see the commission capacitated. So I think when we have the meeting with the commission, the joint meeting between ourselves and police and the portfolio committee on women, we need to impress upon them that perhaps time has come for them to really, capacitate the CGE and ensure that, their recommendations become binding, and institutions right across are compelled to implement recommendations that emanate from the CGE. But Chair, I just want to reiterate that I will be engaging the CGE, and tomorrow I actually have a meeting with MECC and MEGASA, relating to how we can better, support institutions of higher learning when it comes to ensuring that transformation and issues of gender-based violence are addressed across the sector. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, Dr. Mimi Konwe. Thank you very much, Director General, Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi. Thank you very much, CGE colleagues, Dr. Shuping, who led the delegation there, all DDGs present, our capable team of Parliament, parliamentary staff, and members of Parliament. I think earlier on when I was making an example about SMU, I might have made a mistake, and I want to retract it in this meeting and fix it, because a colleague pointed out to me that they believe I said that Professor Mbati of SMU now was charged for sexual harassment at University of Venda. And I would like to retract that. That's not what I would have wanted to say. I would have wanted to say the part one of our his ability to hold office also included the implementation of the sexual harassment policy at Univen, where he was Vice Chancellor. So a colleague made me aware that I made that mistake, and I'm withdrawing it, and I'm apologizing to him and fixing it, that the inquiry was indeed about the implementation of the sexual harassment policy at Univen, where he was Vice Chancellor. And then the rest of the things that I would have said continues the way I said them. Having said that, let's take this opportunity to thank you, colleagues, for let's thank you, CGE. We understand that your mandate outweighs your budget, and it's I mean, I know you would have said at some point that if it were up to you, you'll not only do 4 institutions, you'll do 10. You'll do all of them at the same time, but due to budgetary constraint, you can't, and that's why you're able to sample. On questions that you may not have answered adequately, please send them to us in writing. I think this report, especially in fact, let me put it this way. When you began your responses, you did say that because of the time allocated for you to do the presentation, you gave us a high-level summary, and you have a report on each institution. So we'd like you to give us reports on those institutions, the CG reports on all these institutions, with full details so that members can go through them. Our members go and do individual oversight at these institutions. So it's very important that when they do go, at least they have full information on these things. So, but would like to thank you and your team. I know that the CEO and the board they could not come because CGE is they have some national conference that they are busy with in Johannesburg. DG, I almost fought with the CEO that when they wanted us to postpone, and I told them we can't postpone, unfortunately. And I'm happy that this meeting went on, and the capable Dr. Shuping came and gave us this report, because my worry was that if we postpone, given the time frames we have in Parliament, it will be too long for us to then get this report from CGE. And these issues, in my view, are extremely important, extremely urgent. Many of them must be attended to immediately. So that is why I was almost fought with the CEO there. But Dr. Shubin, please send our regards to them and all the best with the conference. I think it's a 2-day conference that ends tomorrow. Sends our regard to everybody at CGE. We really appreciate your efforts. Colleagues at DG, I know you've just arrived from the official state visit with the president, where you had accompanied the minister. You've recently just came back, if not yesterday, on Sunday. You might be tired, but Mushuto Tsulapil, you must go and work. Unfortunately for you, that's the path you chose. Thank you very much for attending. And the rest of the DDGs, I think Dr. Sotrikwa, I think the DG also spoke about the DG of planning. Deputy Minister Gondwe, thank you very much for being with us, and also for reminding me that this is you allocated responsibilities by the ministers, the deputy minister in the sector. I'm sure now it's clearer the challenges we have about gender representation in our institutions. Very soon, deputy minister, some of them may be saying to you, you don't have legislative rights to ask them certain questions. Don't worry, would work together with you. Once they start doing that, just inform us. They've got a responsibility to account, and they would be hoping that these institutions are going to account. And if they're giving you problems, just let us know. Together, we're going to make them to account. They are public institutions. The money that the voted funds that we give them, I think on grants alone, plus almost 40 billion that we take to these universities on a yearly basis. So it can't be that they don't want to account on how they're using some of these monies, because some of them, they use it to pay salaries. Imagine they use that money to pay salaries and they're excluding people with disabilities, they're excluding women and all of that, and would be told that we don't have jurisdiction over that. But yeah, maybe before I close, I see Dr. Shuping, you have raised your hand.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. No, I must just correct for the record, I'm not the doctor yet. It's our CEO who's the doctor, so, but I welcome the good wishes. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, Dr. Shuping, you should have just said you receive, you know. On a serious note, we really appreciate you correcting us. So members of Parliament, thank you very much for your insightful questions. Very, inspiring, very building questions that you have asked the department, that you have asked the CGE. I really appreciate all your questions. And we've asked the department and the CGE to submit some of the responses that are not properly answered. So we'll ask you, if you think your questions were not properly answered, just write them to Anele and we'll send them to the relevant stakeholders so that they are able to respond to us. Having said that, the time is now 12:15, colleagues. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for attending the meeting and announce that this meeting is officially adjourned. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Chair.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye. Thank you, Dr. Shuping. Receive.
Yeah, you must receive.
Recording stop.